Ah, Malta, a place with glorious sunshine, architecture and culture. A place where I can relax, watch some local football without having to care about the madness back home. If even Rafe can't ruin it, surely no other club will come along and go into crisis.
What do you mean Aki's have a 6-point deduction?
Ah, of course, the eternal basket case of Lanarkshire. That is, Hamilton Academical have decided to get themselves another points deduction. This follows a transfer embargo, a move to Cumbernauld, the loss of their academy, and a myriad of wacky situations. So, 6 months after the last video on Aki's, which will provide a lot of context to those behind the scenes and everything that has happened up to that point, so give that a watch. We all got up? Right, let's have a look at what on earth has happened at Aki's since their relegation to League One was confirmed. We start off with a club statement. We're going to get a lot of these. That was released on the 3rd of May. This came after their appeal against a 15-point deduction over a stadium debacle was rejected. This first statement talks about how the club will fight to return to the championship, will remain full-time, the academy will remain an integral part of the club's identity, with youth players given the opportunity to play the first team, strategic appointments will be made to the board, and that the club's long-term aim is to return to Hamilton after their spell in exile, along with further communications with fans will be on a regular basis. The following week, a meeting between fans and board members would finally be held. The first part of the meeting was held with Colin McGowan, the owner of the stadium and former owner of the club, where he would mention how the washing machine hires hadn't been paid in over a year, electricity hadn't been paid since September.
I know, terrifying, isn't it? Now, if I was to let that run, I'd be potless and in the gutter by Thursday.
Well, aye, you would, aye.
However, with this device, gentlemen, I, Winston, am King of Lecky.
And waste collection wasn't being paid either. He mentions how the stadium was left in a mess with the club's departure, but some more financial stuff came to light. Serif Zengin, the Aki's CEO, claimed that Turkish Airlines were wanting to pay Aki's £200,000 to have their logo painted on the roof of New Douglas Park so that pilots could see it when landing at Glasgow Airport. It should be pointed out that Turkish Airlines don't fly to Glasgow. Eventually, the debacle about selling the stadium came up, and I want to read this quote for quote. After being asked why it appears he doesn't want to sell, McGowan would say, "If you say someone was gay enough times, it would be a commonly held view they were gay."
What?
A rather bizarre way to get your point across, but the general point he was making was that Aki's couldn't buy the stadium because they didn't have the money. I don't know what gay people have to do with this though, although when McGowan was at Rafe and in financial trouble, he complained by saying if 44 homosexual violinists wanted a grant, they could get 5 million, but a community football club couldn't get a penny. Anyway, McGowan came in with more claims of the club's reckless spending, adding that the club spent £1.5 million in League One when they didn't have a sponsor, players not having pensions paid, and the club having a credit rating of 2 out of 100. The second part of this meeting, however, was with Serif Zengin, along with Jock Brown, the club chairman, and Jerry Strain, the director of football. Here, Jock Brown opens by saying that staying at New Douglas Park had become impossible and that he wasn't happy with the lack of information McGowan was providing in terms of liabilities the stadium had. Zengin even claimed the board were willing to overpay to keep McGowan happy, but he was still not able to get assurances over the stadium company. It was here that it was announced that Hamilton for the next 2 years would not be playing in Hamilton, with a deal in the works to play at Broadwood for 2 years being agreed with North Lanarkshire Council. Jerry Strain also confirmed that for the previous season, Aki's had 39 players under contract. Yes, 39. Why do you need that many players? Anyway, the meeting devolved into blame being thrown around rents with claims that they were losing money on Clyde games, before some rather bizarre claims from Jerry Strain. Jerry said that on January 6, 2024, Colin McGowan was storming the Capitol building. I mean, Colin McGowan had administrators lined up for the club, along with a supposed plan to merge Aki's and Clyde. A few days after this meeting, a club statement from Jock Brown would further talk about the stadium issue. He talks about how the board had no other option than to leave New Douglas Park and Hamilton as a whole due to not having any appropriate stadium nearby. He further talks about the failed deal to buy New Douglas Park, reiterating that they did have the funds to buy the stadium, along with calling the conditions and tenancy agreement unacceptable. He also talks about the effect that this has had with the youth academy, but Jock says that urgent attention is being taken and that everything will be fine.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
Heading into June then, and Accies were in the news once again. This time it was to do with their women's team. Founded as Hamilton Athletic LFC in 1995, the club rebranded as Hamilton Accies Ladies in 2013. 2024-25 saw the club win the SWPL2, earning promotion to the top flight. The club, however, were able to stay at New Douglas Park, and because of this, the men's board told the women's team that they must rebrand as they want to form another Accies women's team. I should add, neither of these things have happened, and as of the time of writing, Accies are bottom after 10 games on 0 points and with a minus 38 goal difference. On the 19th of June, it was finally confirmed that Accies would be playing in Cumbernauld with a 2-year lease agreed with North Lanarkshire Council, as well as an optional year extension. Following this, season ticket prices were revealed where, if purchased after the 1st of July, an adult season ticket would cost £299. Need I remind you, this is a League One club that now plays 15 miles away from their actual home. Don't worry though, the club are putting on buses to help home fans travel to home games. They cost £5 per person and are first come first serve. Meanwhile, Colin McGowan was back in the news, complaining about the club board. Colin compares the club departing New Douglas Park to a messy divorce, which is putting it lightly in my opinion. In a post on LinkedIn, McGowan said, "Over the last few months, I have had major emotional challenges watching something which I played a big part in building, which in my opinion is now being systematically ripped apart by bit for no reason that I will ever understand." At least he showed some self-awareness, adding, "I simply accept we are all fully accountable for the decisions we ourselves make as individuals or as members of corporate boards, especially when those decisions affect a whole community." Good news though, the Academy will be remaining in Hamilton. On the 25th of July, the SPFL put out a statement. Here it was announced that Accies had been placed under a season-long transfer embargo. Accies were already under a transfer embargo due to their shenanigans last season, so this really didn't help with preparations. The club was also fined £7,500, with £5,000 being suspended. This came out after there was fears from fan chiefs over the prospect of administration due to tax and wage issues. Also, remember ZLX, the former stadium sponsor who were involved with some dodgy research and development tax breaks? Well, they were involved with Dundee United, and they have been found to be using tax reliefs for players' wages. Also, I mentioned in the last video about the club having 2 different social media accounts. Well, the Facebook account that was linked on the club website, that was by someone related to Colin McGowan's company, so was rebranded to the Hamilton Community Stadium's Facebook page, something that could also be seen around at New Douglas Park. As the season started then, fan protests outside Broadwood commenced ahead of their game against Montrose. From what was shown on social media and other videos such as 30 Adventures' interview with some of the protesters, you could see there were plenty of families and that this was very clearly a peaceful protest. Cue the club statement. Kim Jok-brun, dissatisfied with the gall of supporters for standing up against the board. The statement reads, "Our opening league match of the season on Saturday was blighted seriously by people who have the audacity to call themselves Accies supporters." Right, Jock, I know there's not many of them, but there's no need for that sort of name calling. A protest took place at Broadwood which necessitated police intervention and heaped shame on the perpetrators who verbally abused decent supporters collecting their tickets, including our oldest season ticket holder and a teenage boy, a minor, who was subjected to disgusting, foul and abusive language. I have always supported peaceful protest, so long as it shows complete respect to innocent members of the public. What happened on Saturday was nothing short of a disgrace. Not only were our decent supporters abused, but members of North Lanarkshire Council and club staff carrying out their matchday duties. That is all completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. We are taking steps now to ban the ringleaders of that shocking behaviour from all our matches indefinitely. We are well aware that Aki's fans did not want to move away from Hamilton, neither did any member of the board, but we have already explained why staying at New Douglas Park was impossible. No other location in Hamilton was suitable, so the temporary move to Broadwood was necessary. We have a 2-year lease with an option for a further year. During that time, we shall do everything possible to identify and develop a new site in Hamilton. Meanwhile, we trust that all good Aki supporters will share the board's dismay and anger at the appalling behaviour on Saturday. To absolutely no surprise, the board were rightfully slandered for this, with the Aki Supporters Association putting out a statement saying, to label last Saturday's peaceful demonstration as appalling behaviour that necessitated police intervention is not only a gross misrepresentation of events, but further proof of a board intent on alienating its own supporters and deflecting accountability for its failures. The next game, meanwhile, was in the KDM Evolution Trophy, the revamped Challenge Cup thing, and it was against Motherwell. Just their B team though. So with this, you think they'd make tickets a bit cheaper to encourage some fans to take the trip up to Cumbernauld? They were £20. As expected, barely anybody turned up, and for those who did turn up, they saw what was effectively an Aki's B team as well. This was also the same day that Academy coach Michael Tinser left the club to become a player at Montrose, even though he'd been at Aki's for just 2 weeks. Well, it turns out the oh so highly valued Academy had been paused for the season.
Fuck them kids. Fuck the kids? Yeah.
Jerry Strayed had put out a letter to parents saying, "We are writing to you today with great sincerity, openness and a genuine sense of understanding following recent developments surrounding our Elite Academy programme. Over the course of the last 48 hours, we have taken on board the considerable feedback from families regarding the club's proposed format for the 2025-26 Academy season at Broadwood Stadium. While the plan was created with long-term development in mind, it is clear that it does not meet the current needs or practical realities for most of our players and their families. We respect and accept that outcome wholeheartedly. As of today, Hamilton Academical will pause all Elite Academy operations across the under 11 to under 15 age groups for the 25-26 season. This step is not one we take lightly. It is, however, vital to ensure that we honour our obligations to the Club Academy Scotland framework by providing timely notice and allowing them the opportunity to adjust fixtures and competition structures accordingly." So, Hamilton Academical, the club named after an academy, albeit an educational one, and where said footballing academy has been a lifeline for the club, has failed to meet the requirements to run for the season. The reasoning was confirmed following the SFA releasing their statement in regards to the upcoming academy season. In it, the SFA confirmed that Akis have been removed from the caste system. They state, despite being provided with numerous opportunities to do so, the club was unable to provide assurances to the licensing committee in 8 different key areas, including facilities, coaching qualifications, and child well-being and protection standards.
How you doing? All right. Could you have a seat over in that chair, please? Good. Please sit down. Put your hands up top so I can see them. What are you doing here?
All players in the Hamilton Academical CAS programme have now had their registrations cancelled by the Scottish FA, allowing those players to leave the club should they wish. The club will not retain any entitlement to training compensation in respect of any of those players. It has also been decided that, for season 25-26, other CAS clubs can register these former Hamilton CAS players, notwithstanding that they may have already registered the maximum number of players permitted under the CAS regulations. These steps have been taken to facilitate opportunities for players affected by the situation, but parents and carers of any such player are invited to contact the Scottish FA should they require any assistance with finding another club for their child to play at. Of course, the next Aki statement was about job vacancies, those being an academy physiotherapist and a child welfare and protection officer. Don't worry though, because that man Jerry Strayed has been doing his own thing. On the same day that he penned the letters that went to academy parents, he was posting on LinkedIn about his Fantasy Premier League prizes. He proceeded to later post on LinkedIn about how silence is killing football clubs, boardroom bullying and lack of values, abuse of privilege. It basically reads like a high schooler's dramatic Facebook post. Anyway, as Jerry Strain is director of football, it is his job to deal with recruitment and player registrations. Well, Accies were demanding clarification from the SFA/SPFL as to why they couldn't register assistant manager Darren McKinnon and goalkeeper coach Dean Linus as amateurs for their game against Motherwell B. Dean Linus is under a paid contract as he has been for previous seasons. Same with Darren McKinnon. A few weeks later, John Rankin confirmed, following their defeat to Edinburgh City, that he had to make 2 late changes to his lineup. Those being the removal of Jamie Hurd, a 15-year-old from the now discontinued academy, and Michael Stone, who had been playing under an amateur contract, having come up from England.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
Still, some good news though. Ticket prices for the Challenge Cup were brought down to £12, and the Accies website was updated to give their fans some valuable information about the legalities of online pokies in Tasmania? Some more good news for Accies fans came at the end of August, however, as it was revealed that Zero Zengin was set to sell the club. Zengin had travelled to Turkey in an attempt to sell, claiming he was being victimised by the SFA and SPFL. There might be a reason for that. So, who were these potential investors? Rumours were it was a group of investors from America.
America, fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah! America, fuck yeah! Freedom is the only way, yeah!
The good news wouldn't last, however, as there were reports the SPFL were preparing to open new disciplinary proceedings against the club over alleged irregularities surrounding the registration of amateur players. A side piece in the Metro also revealed a winding up order from Total Energies towards Accies, something that could potentially hold a 15-point deduction. In a club statement, Accies claimed they had only found out about this order that afternoon, with Jock Brown adding, "I am aware of no contractual relationships with the company involved and have no knowledge of any previous communications from that company. In these circumstances, it appears as though the wrong party is being pursued." Considering no SPFL action was taken over this, for once, a club statement is a worthwhile piece of factual information. Also, Jerry Strain had updated his LinkedIn, removing his fit and proper person accreditation from the SFA.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
Idiot sandwich what?
An idiot sandwich.
September started off with more good news as it looked as if the deal to sell the club was nearing completion. The group of 5 businessmen from America and Scotland had supposedly agreed a deal with Zengin, with hopes of it being sorted in the coming days or weeks, depending on the SFA approval. Anyway, remember that statement at the beginning of August in regards to the fan protests? Well, somebody put in a Freedom of Information request to Police Scotland to see if there was any truth to the statement. To nobody's surprise, the statement was a bunch of lies. The requester asked the police for a police report, the number of officers present, any arrests made, and the post-operation report. Police Scotland could not provide any of this because no arrests or reports were made, and there was no police officers there anyway. Also, Accies made a signing. They brought in Mehmet Reçber, son of 120-time capped Turkish goalkeeper Rüştü Reçber, from Queen's Park Rangers. This was announced by a Turkish transfer page on the 2nd of September, was then tweeted by a QPR fan page on the 8th of September, before finally being discovered by Accies fans on the 11th of September. The club had never, and still haven't, announced this signing. On the pitch meanwhile, in a 4-0 win against Kelty, Darren McKinnon, the assistant manager they were looking to register as an amateur, came off the bench to play his first SPFL game in nearly 5 years. He turned 40 a few weeks later. September would close out with a deal to sell the club being delayed as the owned £75,000 to an unnamed creditor relating to their time at New Douglas Park, which they did end up paying at least. October, however, saw an interesting piece of information strike Company's house. A few months after they were meant to be submitted, Accies posted their unaudited accounts for the 2023-24 season, which covered their last season in League One. So, let's have a look at some of the details, shall we? A £1.8 million loss? Right. How has this happened then? Well, let's do a comparison against the 2022-23 season, shall we? You know, a season where they were in the Championship. 2023 saw revenues just under £2 million. 2024 saw revenues increase to £3.75 million, even though they went down a division.
I think I can smell shite. Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
Other costs went up by £300,000, rent saw an increase of £2,000, but wages went from £265,000 to £2.9 million. If those numbers sound fishy, that's because they are. £256,000 a year for a professional football club's wage bill is very, very worrying, as it means even if we take it as the 16 players who made more than 10 appearances in the matchday squad, that leaves professional players on an average wage of £16,000 a year, which is a few £1,000s less than working a full-time job on minimum wage. So, unless Hamilton Academical are Scotland's largest runners of modern slavery, I think those original figures are missing a zero, especially when you consider that 43 different players were in a matchday squad across the full season. There were, however, some significant changes behind the scene, as the day after the accounts were published, it was revealed that Jimmy Strain and Jock Brown were listed as people of significant control, while Serif Zengin was removed. This provided at least some hope for the future when it comes to a potential sale. However, 2 weeks later, it was revealed in the Herald that the SPFL were withholding £70,000 from Accies over concerns they may not fulfil their fixtures, but it does seem that the talks of a sale are in the advanced stages. Meanwhile, in Hamilton proper, Colin McGowan stepped down as the director of the stadium company, with his replacement being Scott Struthers, who seemingly actually cares about the club and wants to see them return to the town. Of course, the idea of good news staying around for long at Accies continues to be a myth, as once again, an SPFL statement was released in regards to goings on with the club. It was revealed that Accies had been given a 6-point deduction from League One, a points deduction from the Challenge Cup, and a £22,000 fine. The reason for this? Making payments to players who are registered as amateur players for the club and or who the club have attempted to register as amateur players. Making payments to players who have appeared as trialists for the club. Breach of the club's duty to behave with the utmost good faith towards the SPFL and other clubs regarding its paying of trialists and amateur players. Abuse of the registration system by attempting to register professional players as amateur players. Failing to keep records and documentation required under SPFL rules.
What's going on in there?
What?
Of course, this was swiftly followed by a club statement claiming the board maintains that the club was not in breach of the rules as announced and intends to exercise its right of appeal to the SFA. But we all know they are guilty. I mean, has anything from the past 18 months proven they are capable of running a football club within the rules? November, meanwhile, has started with some good news. Jock Brown has left the club. It is claimed it's due to health reasons, but the statement put out by the club is something else. It includes some wonderful phrases such as, Jock has been much more than a chairman to this football club. He has been a constant source of wisdom, integrity, and compassion, one of the most complete human beings that we have ever had the privilege to work alongside. Yeah, this whole thing screams of having been written by AI, just in a way to not accept Kim Jong-un. Even then, it was released by Serif Zengen, which is interesting to say the least. This means one thing. Jerry Strain is now the sole director of this football club. The man who is responsible for the points deductions and being involved in multiple companies who have been dissolved is steering the ship at a board level.
You're good, and stop. Don't worry, Captain, we'll buff out those scratches.
Thankfully, a club statement would be released by Jerry, detailing what the plan is going forward. In it, he states, "As director of football, and now as the club's sole director, my responsibility is to ensure that Hamilton Academical continues to operate within all legal, financial, and football regulatory frameworks. This includes protecting staff employment, fulfilling league and association obligations, and ensuring that the club remains compliant with the Companies Act 2006 and all SPFL and SFA requirements of us as a member organisation." Because he and the other board members have done such a stellar job at that beforehand. He also adds, "It is important to state that today, the club remains operational and all football and administrative activities continue as normal. However, it is not sustainable or responsible for the club to remain under a single directorship for any prolonged period. In order to do all that I can to safeguard the club's longer-term stability, I have therefore begun the process of identifying and appointing new board members." Oh god, he's appointing his own board members. I swear to God, if I see Scott Gardner in an Aki suit, I will have some sort of breakdown that leads to me being sent to Strathfield Hospital.
Pinwheels! Pinwheels in my head! Voices! Angry fish!
How's he doing?
Not good. He still thinks this is practice of some sort.
Anyway, it turns out Jerry Strain will not be allowed to appoint his own board members after an SFA statement, which is a big one to say the least. The statement reads, "The Scottish FA has written to Hamilton Academical to notify that following investigation, neither Sarah Zengen nor Jerry Strain are fit and proper to hold a position within an association football club, in accordance with Scottish FA Article 10.3. Accordingly, pursuant to Scottish FA Article 10.10, the board has determined that Mr. Zengen and Mr. Strain shall not, with immediate effect, carry out any role at the club which would require them to be listed on the club's official return and or be involved in any capacity whatsoever in the management or administration of the club, and or exert any power whatsoever to influence the management or administration of the club. The club has been directed by the board to take all steps necessary to ensure its compliance with the foregoing determination. Should it fail to do so, the club may face disciplinary proceedings and sanctions under and in accordance with the Judicial Panel Protocol. We note from the records at Companies House that Mr. Strain is currently the only director of the club. We have informed the club to write to us within 7 days to outline the steps it intends to take to ensure it complies with its legal obligations, following the implementation of the determination referred to above." The same statement goes into further detail in regards to Zengen and Strain, with the comments of Zengen regarding, "The board reached its conclusion as a result of Mr. Zengen's acknowledged responsibility for financial matters at the club, during a period when the club has demonstrated serious and sustained financial mismanagement by repeatedly failing to pay individuals and organisations on time, including players, HMRC and employee pension funds." Meanwhile, in the trial of Jerry Strain, they add, "The board has reached a conclusion as a result of Mr. Strain's direct involvement in the following matters relating to the club. The various charges contained in the SPFL Notice of Complaint served on the club on 4th of April 2025, which were upheld at first instance and on appeal. The club's removal from the Club Academy System programme following its failure to secure a CAS award for 2025 as a result of not meeting several CAS criteria, principally around child well-being, which resulted in a material adverse impact on others involved in the game, including young players in other CAS clubs. The conclusion reached by an independent third party who conducted a case review into a child wellbeing matter involving the club on behalf of the Scottish FA that Mr. Strain failed to meet the minimum standards contained in the responding to concerns as per Scottish FA Child Wellbeing and Protection Policy, and the charges brought against the club by the SPFL regarding breaches of various SPFL rules relating to the payment of amateur and trialist players, which were upheld at first instance and not appealed by the club. Mr. Strain's conduct in these matters has led to several sanctions being imposed on the club. So, Zingen and Strain have been given a pretty simple task then. You have 7 days to get out of Accies or more sanctions will be placed upon the club.
You are done. Fired. Do not show your face at the laundry again. Stay away from Pinkman. Do not go near him. Ever. Are you listening to me?
It should be added that Jock Brown was also involved in this statement, but the SFA said they had insufficient evidence to strip him of the fit and proper accreditation. On the one hand, this is all good news. It means these charlatans who are putting on a masterclass in killing a football club are being forcibly removed. On the other hand, how are they going to find a new investor in 7 days? The finances are in a terrible state, with a total debt sitting at £2.1 million and with £700,000 of debt over the trade creditors, whilst only having tangible assets worth £815,000. Even then, this is referring to the 2024 accounts. It's probably a lot worse than what it is now. Anyway, in response to this news, the least surprising turn of events would come around as it was revealed that, instead of taking responsibility for their actions, Serif and Jerry are seeking legal advice over their fit and proper status being revoked. Somehow, on the same day of the SFA statement and the planned legal action, more news would come out. This time it's to do with Police Scotland investigating the club for potential fraud.
You're joking. Not another one?
A few days later, Serif Zingen would be in the news again, this time claiming that the SPFL and SFA are sabotaging the club in an attempt to destroy them. Serif, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the SFA and SPFL are not at fault for any of this. Well, maybe they are at fault for not stepping in sooner, but it's you and that oaf in charge of football operations who are sabotaging the club. The SFA and SPFL may have their issues, but they don't hand out these punishments for no reason. Serif, you are responsible for the financial side of things, right? So that means you are at fault for the millions of debt, the failure to pay players, HMRC and pensions that led to a 15-point deduction, the failure with the stadium deal, although the blame can equally be put on Colin McGowan because something similar happened at Rafe as well. Failing to get shirt sponsors for 2 seasons in a row, which again puts more pressure on the club. You've also allowed Jerry Strain to remain in a job, a man who in his time has seen the club have enough players to field 2 matchday squads, killed the academy, been involved in paying amateur players and trialists, leading to more points deductions, and now leaving him as the sole director. The only sabotage has been from these 2 businessmen who have almost certainly killed a football club. Even Scott Gardner didn't get banned by the SFA. That's how bad these 2 are. Don't worry though, because we now have a Q&A with Mr. Zingen where he tries to worm his way out of any responsibility. When confronted with the facts about all the previous issues the club has had under his ownership, he blames the SFA. He talks about how the club is running month to month to avoid administration, having been on the brink a total of 7 times. An interim chief financial officer is in place and that he has had a buyer ready, but again blames the SFA, saying the first thing they are doing is they are sabotaging the takeover deal so it doesn't go through, and the second thing is not paying the club money it is due to force it into administration. It's as simple as that. In regards to the fraud inquiry, it was him that brought them in because of the 15-point deduction, again saying, We requested this inquiry because we believe there has been fraud involved and it runs all the way to the high end of Scottish football, with further claims that the 15-point deduction came about because Airdrie was struggling and Airdrie's owner was on the SPFL board at the time. In regards to the academy, he again blames the SFA, and in a final attempt to win favour from fans, he says, "I am not just someone who picked up this football club. I have been in this football club for 16 years as a director and now as an owner. If I didn't take over the club when I did, a Nigerian consortium was going to take over." Hey, the Nigerian princes from a few years ago are back. To sum up this Q&A then, the people behind this mess are the SFA, the SPFL, Colin McGowan and his stadium company, the people at the Youth Academy, and an external company who are in charge of finances. And those not to blame are Sarah Zengen and Jerry Strain.
What do you mean? Well, I was fucking one of yous. Disgusting!
The best quote from this, however, has got to be when we went to the appeal process. It was an absolute joke. They had a guy sitting in there with a Hawaiian shirt on and a can of Monster in his hand. He wasn't interested to listen to us at all. Honestly, I don't blame him at this point. It's got to be false. It's false. But I want it to be true. Whilst not much news would happen over the weekend beside the 2-1 loss away to bottom of the table Cove Rangers, the Accies fans set up a fundraiser to help save the club, which would see them raise £21,000 in just 5 days. The club meanwhile put up a post on Twitter about their upcoming cup game against local rivals Airdrie, telling fans to ignore an email that claimed the game had been cancelled. A week after the SFA statement telling Zengen and Strain to get out or face sanctions, Accies released a club statement saying, "Hamilton Academical acknowledges the decision issued by the Scottish FA on the 11th of November 2025 concerning Mr. Sarah Zengen and Mr. Gerard Strain. The club notes that Mr. Zengen will not be appealing the decision. An appeal has been lodged on behalf of Mr. Strain, and that process will now run its course through the appropriate channels. He remains a director pending the outcome of the appeal." Incredible. Serif Zengen is showing sense and is walking away and accepting his punishment. Jerry, meanwhile, is imitating the Black Knight from Monty Python, considering how much the SFA tore into him in their statement.
Right, I'll do you for that. You what? Come here.
What are you going to do, bleed on me?
I'm invincible!
You're a loony.
The Black Knight always triumphs! How about you? Come on, then. All right, we'll call it a draw.
The club also adds, "Separately, we are aware of press reports suggesting that there is a Police Scotland fraud investigation related to the club. We consider it important to note that the investigation does not involve any current director or employee of the club, and that the investigation arose due to Mr. Strain reporting certain circumstances to Police Scotland upon them coming to his attention. Does not involve a current director or employee of the club." Right, who's starting a betting ring on former Accies board members to work out who was committing fraud? My money's on McGowan. Also, it should be pointed out that unlike every other statement, there was no name attached to this one. Jerry has definitely been using ChatGPT, hasn't he? The Scottish Cup game against Airdrie did come around, and considering the previous message about it not being cancelled, Accies fans were probably wishing it was after they got thumped 4-0. It got even worse as in the aftermath of this game, John Rankin resigned, citing further issues behind the scenes. This issue was, once again, related to the payment of players and staff. Those on the Accies payroll were meant to be paid in the afternoon, but Rankin himself had to chase this up until they were finally paid at 5 to midnight. If it was after that midnight deadline, then we all know that there would have been another SFA statement about points deductions, probably. It was also revealed that Strain was working on a 48-hour stabilisation package to keep the club afloat, with an SFA procedural hearing on his appeal set to take place on the 8th of December. In my previous video, I slagged off John Rankin a bit for his poor record in the Championship, and I think it's only fair that I sort of retract my statement. Considering the buffoonery from the higher-ups he's had to deal with, it can only be commended that he's stuck around this long. Hopefully his next job isn't at a club where he's having to put out fires left, right and centre, especially after his comments about how in the game at Airdrie, he had players on the pitch with broken hands and needing stitches on ankles. There is no need to worry though, as on the 1st of December, Jerry Strain would whip out ChatGPT for another club statement. In this, he would confirm that Darren McKinnon would take over as first team coach, which, as to be expected, but it is mentioned that this interim structure has been implemented to provide clarity and reassurance to all stakeholders that the club remains fully operational, strategically aligned and focused on football performance whilst a wider review is undertaken. What stakeholders? It's just Jerry and Seraph at this point. The statement also has a further plea to the fans saying, "The board recognise that many recent events have caused concern and uncertainty, and for that we sincerely apologise. Your commitment to Hamilton Academical through every high and low is the foundation of this club. The board want to reassure all supporters that every decision being made is with the long-term interest of the club at heart. The board remain absolutely committed to restoring stability and protecting the future of Hamilton Academical. As the custodian of a 151-year history, the board takes seriously the responsibility to safeguard the values and identity of this club for generations to come." First of all, what board? Again, it's just Jerry. Secondly, with the way things are going, there's not going to be future generations supporting Accies unless we see a repeat of what happened with Rangers and Dumbarton with the whole liquidation and new company shenanigans. Anyway, the results of a different appeal that went under the radar was revealed relating to the former youth academy. Back in July, Accies under-17s would take part in the Super Cup NI in Northern Ireland. During this time, they would play against academy teams from Tigres Unal of Mexico, Bournemouth, Southampton and Arsenal from England, and the hosts County Fermanagh. The issue, however, is that to have an under-17 side, you need the required licences, which Accies lost in June, meaning they would be fined £28,000, of which £24,000 needed to be paid by Christmas.
Cloy, what do you say?
Hey Hamilton, have a holly jolly Christmas.
The following day, we would get a rather bizarre update on the Accies company's house page. Instead of posting a header and a short description like every other statement, Jerry has managed to post what can only be presumed as the contents of the document itself as the header, leading to this wall of text that says that full operational authority is restored to Mr. Jerry Strain with immediate effect, notwithstanding his non-shareholding status. Mr. Strain is authorised to secure short-term funding, negotiate with creditors, enter commercial agreements, ensure payroll obligations are met, implement emergency measures to maintain solvency, prepare a 48-hour stabilisation plan and a 14-day restructuring roadmap, proceed with any litigation deemed as being necessary upon Police Scotland's conclusion of their live investigation into the fraud cases reported to them by Mr. Strain since May 2025. The board further resolved to adopt this emergency action as a matter of public record in accordance with the Companies Act 2006. First of all, this is terribly written. If I handed this in as a written piece in high school, the teacher would fail me. Where's the capital letters? He's spelt insure wrong. Terrible. Extra homework for Jerry. Right, let's properly break this down. That full operational authority is restored to Mr. Jerry Strain with immediate effect, notwithstanding his non-shareholding status. He's about to get banned by the SFA, so why would you do this? And who is restoring his full operational authority? Himself? Mr. Strain is authorised to secure short-term funding, negotiate with creditors, enter commercial agreements, ensure payroll obligations are met, implement emergency measures to maintain solvency, prepare a 48-hour stabilisation plan and a 14-day restructuring roadmap. Right, so administration is incoming then. That's good to know, because there's no way that Jerry is competent enough to find the funding required to keep it going.
Spare change. Spare change, ma'am.
Squidward? Squidward, is that you?
Proceed with any litigation deemed as being necessary upon Police Scotland's conclusion of the live investigations into the fraud cases reported to them by Mr. Strain since May 2025. Oh yeah, the fraud case. Forgot about that. Evidently, the police are still investigating this, which, considering it was brought up in May, does bring concerns as to how deep it goes. All of this was relating to a board meeting that was held on the 28th of November. And the day after this was put up in the header section, we got the full document with more information about said meeting, which revealed some more concerning news. Alongside what was already covered, it was noted that Sheriff Zingen had pulled the plug on funding the club on the 28th of November, which was payday for staff and players.
Oh, you get nothing! You lose! Good day, sir!
A governance and stability measures section is there, but it's basically just Jerry Strain patting himself on the back for doing the bare minimum, including the hiring of the academy staff that they were punished for not having. Also, the meeting supposedly lasted half an hour, with it being signed off by Jerry, as he is a sole director, and the witness of this meeting, Jerry, which is not allowed because the witness needs to be independent, meaning this big document showcasing a rescue plan is null and void, maybe?
Oh, Simpson, can't you go 5 seconds without humiliating yourself?
How long was that?
Sheriff Zingen, meanwhile, was also having issues with Company's House, as on the 5th of December, it was revealed that one of his companies, Active Access Limited, was given a winding up order over a £4,000 debt to Volvo. Look on the bright side though, Ollie Shaw won Player of the Month for November. Anyway, on the 9th of December, a day they would end up losing 5-2 away at Wraith Rovers, another update was put up on Company's House, this time relating to a registration of charge. A registration of charge is a security a company gives in exchange for a loan, sort of like a mortgage on a house. Accies have an agreement with the Funding Globe, which sees the club have fixed charges against all their equipment, finances and intellectual property, with the Funding Globe having the ability to call in administrators should there be any events of default, which the document lists as non-payment of any secured liabilities, breaches of any finance documents, insolvency or winding up action, cessation of business, or material adverse change. So who are the Funding Globe? Well, they are a business finance consultant firm from Leeds who also provide loans with a focus on small businesses. Well, that's what their homepage says when summarised. Can't use the About Us section as that has an error 404 come up. What about the part of the website dedicated to loans then? That also has an error 404 message. That's promising, isn't it? The good news is that for once, going through Company's House, it seems as though they are an actual functioning company, which makes a change in these videos. Although saying that, like Accies, the Funding Globe also only has one director listed on Company's House. That one director, though, is a man called Neil Petty, who is involved in the Motormile Group, which saw a scandal where 500,000 people had their debt wiped due to unfair practices, totaling a cost of £414 million. Oh god, Accies are at the behest of loan sharks now, aren't they? Well, it gets weirder, because now someone by the name of Johnny Towers is saying on Twitter that, yes, the website is working, and that the Funding Globe is a real and trusted lender. This account joined Twitter in December 2025, and the two replies at the time of writing are related to the same post about the Accies deal. Well, at least they fixed the website. Okay, so quick update. They put up a post on LinkedIn about how they were the company who put in the money to pay staff and players before the required deadline. Also, Johnny Towers is listed as a director on LinkedIn, but not on Company's House for some reason. The following day, however, it was revealed in the Daily Record that, to nobody's surprise, Accies were heading straight for administration, with talks taking place due to potential investors pulling out. Also on the same day, we found out about the result of Jerry's appeal to the SFA. Again, to nobody's surprise, his appeal was rejected.
Get out.
Skylar, I promise you, we will figure this out.
Enough.
Mom, what are you doing?
Skylar, put the knife down, please. I promise you
Don't
everything...
say one more word. Get out of here. Now.
This would lead to another ChatGPT club statement. Reading: Hamilton Academical Football Club expresses its deep disappointment at the Scottish Football Association's decision not to grant the club's appeal on its recent Article 10 determination, which directly concerns our director, Jerry Strain. This outcome is not only frustrating, it raises serious questions about fairness and the willingness of the governing body to engage constructively in resolving what is an undeniably challenging situation. The decision communicated by the SFA stated that Jerry Strain had no right of appeal, despite the club making lengthy and detailed submissions supported by legal arguments. The response received was just over a single page and did not engage with or review the substantive points raised. This lack of meaningful consideration is deeply concerning. The club believes the SFA's stance effectively forces Hamilton Academical Football Club towards costly and protracted legal proceedings rather than exploring a more pragmatic and collaborative solution. At a time when the club is working tirelessly to stabilise its finances and protect its future, this approach feels disproportionate and unhelpful. Jerry would later add, "This determination affects not only my role, but my reputation. I have acted with integrity and in the best interest of Hamilton Academical FC throughout. Any suggestion otherwise is deeply unfair and will be challenged." Was Jerry one of those kids who were raised by parents who believed their little angel could do no wrong? At what point has he acted with integrity? The damage to his reputation has come from his own incompetency as a director, with the loss of the required SFA licensing, the loss of the academy, multiple relegations, insane levels of squad bloating, paying amateur players and lying about it. You're the one who had ruined your own reputation. This was just the final nail in the coffin that protects other clubs from the possibility of having you involved in any format. Following on from a 4-0 loss away to top of the table Inverness, an update would be made to Aki's company's house page. This time, it was the addition of a director, our old friend Johnny Towers from the Funding Globe. This was confirmed in a club statement that reads, "Due to the recent SFA ruling, Jerry Strain will no longer be able to serve as a director of Hamilton Academical Football Club. Jerry will now focus on challenging that ruling, but in the meantime, he cannot continue in any official capacity with the club. The club wishes to thank Jerry for his dedication, integrity, and significant contributions during his time on the board, especially through challenging periods that he definitely did not cause." Johnny Towers, a senior executive at the Funding Globe, the company that provided emergency financial support on Friday the 12th of December when the club was advised by majority shareholder Sarah Zengen that, despite previous assurances player and staff wages would not be paid, joins the board at a pivotal moment. The Funding Globe brings an extensive network in the sports industry and is currently assembling an executive team to support the club's ongoing recovery and future success. All involved have great faith in acting head coach Darian McKinnon and the talented team of players. At this critical time, the club has formally requested guidance and support from both the SFA and SPFL to help ensure a stable and sustainable future for Hamilton Academical Football Club. There is much work to do and there will be no further statement on the above at this time. Johnny does also add on LinkedIn, "I look forward to working alongside the board, advisors and football authorities as we help steer the club towards a sustainable future." Johnny, you are the board now, unless Jerry has changed himself to a chair in the boardroom, which is entirely plausible at this point. Anyway, on an official level, Jerry Strain is now no longer a part of Hamilton Academical Football Club, with it being confirmed on Company's House on the 16th of December, and as you can probably guess, this was met with celebrations from the Aki's fans. There is still some caution, however, as this now means that Aki's are now effectively owned by the company that they've got a payday loan from, with the coverage being effectively the entire club. The Johnny Towers era got off to an incredible start as later that same day, the SPFL put out a statement relating to the club, reading, "Hamilton Academical has today received a 9-point deduction following an SPFL disciplinary tribunal."
You're joking. Not another one?
SPFL rules require all member clubs to hold a bronze level Scottish FA club licence at the 31st of March. The club was given multiple extensions to this date to comply, but has failed to do so, which led to disciplinary proceedings. The club admitted to breaching these rules following the award by the Scottish FA of an entry-level licence due to the club's accounts being unaudited. At a hearing today, an SPFL disciplinary tribunal imposed the following sanctions for the club's failure to hold a bronze licence. The club was reprimanded and warned as to its future conduct, and the club was deducted 9 points with immediate effect. Well, at least Aki's now topped the all-time record for points deductions in the SPFL era. This ruling dropped Aki's further down the table to 8th, sitting 3 points above Cove and 4 above Kelty. A 15-point deduction for administration would therefore put them bottom with minus 2 points. It should be noted that without the 15 points they've had deducted so far, they would be second on goal difference, 5 points behind Inverness. Even then, administration would also have an added cost. A £1 million loan from the Scottish Government from the COVID era. As Accies were a Premiership club at the time, they were given a loan by the Scottish Government, not a grant. And part of the deal was that in any event of insolvency, the loan must be paid back. So that aforementioned £2.1 million in debt would be increased to £3.1 million. These fears, however, may not be realised, as a potential saviour entered the fray. Rob Edwards. No, not the football manager, but a man with actual sporting business experience. Edwards is the owner of Ohio Valley Wrestling, who, from what I can gather, are one of the more successful regional wrestling promoters in the United States, which he has been the owner of since April 2025. Most importantly, however, Edwards has experience and success in football, having been owner of Haverfordwest County in the Welsh top flight since 2020. Under Edwards, Haverfordwest were given the goal of qualifying for Europe within the next 3 years, even though they were in the Cymru South at the time of his arrival. They would go on to achieve qualification in 22-23 following a playoff win despite finishing 7th. The Cymru Premier runs with a split similar to Scotland, but they play each other twice, have a split where they play their respective opponents twice, and then there is European playoffs where the 7th place team comes in. It's weird. In this return to Europe, they would knock out North Macedonian side Skendia on penalties, their first ever European victory, before being knocked out by Faroese side B36 Torshavn, but they at least got a draw at home. This season they qualified again, but they lost both games to Maltese side Floriana. This has been done with a focus on community, with a game against Aberystwyth having an attendance of 1,400, becoming their record attendance for any game, along with improving the matchday experience through street vendors and alpacas. Seeing as there is an alpaca farm just outside of Hamilton, hopefully we'll be seeing them at New Douglas Park, if Colin McGowan allows it, that is.
Huh? What are you doing in my swamp?
Derp.
Derpity derp 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 derpity derp 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 derpity derp derp.
Alpacas aside, Edwards' community approach would be great for Accies and the town of Hamilton as a whole. Hamilton is a club where there is definitely potential, being from a town of over 50,000 with satellite towns bringing that number up for a potential fan-based catchment area. I know we all joke about Accies having a small fan base, but some community engagement for a few years can really change a club's outlook and fan base size. Something I've witnessed with Rafe, seeing as we went from home crowds of about 1,500 at most in League One to about 3,500 now, with some sellouts for big games in recent years. The academy has also seen the likes of Lewis Ferguson come through, so hopefully that makes a return under Edwards. Of course, this is all dependent on if Edwards completes his takeover, but considering the dire straits the club is in right now, they would be foolish to turn this opportunity down. Then again, this is Accies, and this video has certainly shown that they are not immune to shooting themselves in the foot with an RPG. Right, I think I have finally found a place to end this, so if you have made it to the end, then thank you so much. This is stupidly long. I think Duncan from the Oh No 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 podcast sums it up best.
I mean, our old pal Callum Blythe almost certainly will be putting dents in YouTube servers across the globe. There'll be entire data centers in New Mexico filled with his latest updates on this, because it's just every day there's something else, and it's some sort of madness.
I started making this at the beginning of November. It is now the same week as Christmas, so Merry Christmas, everyone. How do you see the rest of the season panning out for Rockies? Will Edwards save the day, or will we see administration come in, relegation to League 2, or other mental things? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to support the channel more, then memberships are available. Those who have signed up have their name on screen now. Of course, liking, sharing, and subscribing are appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Hopefully it is not over an hour long. I never want to do this again. Bye.